Hey guys, this is Focus Space's training video on your third coat of mud. So if you look at the walls right now, what we've got is our 2 coats on. So we've got our first coat and our second coat done. What we're doing now on each coat is trying to do it carefully so that we don't need to sand between coats except for our third coat. So I'll give you a quick little run through of our second of what we did here. So first coat is a pretty thick coat on that first seam, filling in your gaps for your horizontals, your nails, your corners. All of that we'll touch on a different video, but this is your third coat. So we've skimmed off all of our edges nicely on that second coat and tapered things down. So Wesley, if you come to the side here, you can look down and you see a nice smooth transition. There's no humps. And what we've done this morning too, just go along, feel for any ridges, any major spatters, like sometimes you'll have little chunks, and we just go around and scrape those off. No need to sand. Sanding is going to take a lot more time, make a lot more of a mess. So use your knife. You can see here's a little spot. Just go along, scrape these little bits off. Loaded up here. So this stuff's kind of the consistency of like frosting. Which is what you want to see. And this is really important to keep this stuff sealed up when you're done. If you don't go through a full bag, you need to really make sure and wrap that up. Even zip tie it shut if you need to, or just tie the plastic itself. But yeah, I like to get a good amount on the hawk to start things off. Clean your knife onto the side, and then before you're using any mud, I always like to work it a little bit. This kind of just takes out some of the air pockets, kind of takes it down. I like to smooth it out onto the hawk. Just imagine you're spreading around some cream cheese frosting. Spread it out, scoop it into your middle. It's always nice when you're using the hawk to keep your mud in the center as well. It'll be easier on your wrist. If you have all day the mud on the side, you're just, putting weight on your wrist. So try to keep things clean. Try to keep things in the center of your hawk as you're working. It just takes practice and takes getting used to using each tool, but always keep your knife clean. Today we're going to be using a combination of knives. So we've got our 6-inch as well as our 10-inch. So this one is what we're going to be using to finish. The 6-inch is what we're going to be using to get it onto the wall. So coming over to our joint, this is a pretty standard, this is about the easiest joint you're going to have to work with. It's just a vertical flat, and this is 2 factory joints of drywall, so that's about the easiest seam to do. Simple. What we're going to be doing is getting mud on the wall over the pass we have so far, but since we are using the 10-inch blade, we want to get it wider than we are now. So right now this is our pass from the 6-inch blade. You can see each one of these is about the width of our blade. So what we're wanting to try to do on every seam essentially is taper that in closer to our 10-inch width. So if you have your 10-inch blade, you can see we're trying to go about, give or take 2 inches on either side of that to give us a nice wide, smooth transition. So there's a lot of different ways you can put mud on the wall. One of my favorite ways is just kind of smear. So you take your blade, get a nice amount on, give it a little bit of angle down as well as this, and you're just smearing that on. Don't worry about it looking perfect on the first few passes. We're just getting mud on the wall to start working with it. So there's a few all the way down the bottom. There we go. So there's your first bit on the wall. Next, I like to come back, also come up a little bit higher than your top of your seam, and just start to smooth it out. And keeping your knife clean, smooth it out. And this will give you an idea of how much more you need to apply onto the wall. So obviously we need some more on the sides. We're going to keep going. And then you can come back, start to kind of work that in. And so you're not trying to feather it with this knife, you're really just trying to get it close to flat, close to consistent. I like to come back and do some sideways passes here, or horizontal passes. That kind of just helps even it out a little bit. Gets any really high spots down before you start working with the bigger knife. So that's about what you're looking for to start. Again, you're not going to be at your exact width, and that's fine. You just want to get it in ballpark, even, and kind of smoothed out a little bit. So that's pretty good to get us going. Now we can switch to our 10-inch. Always make sure your blade looks good before you start. I like to give it a wipe sometimes on a cloth through all my pants just to clean up any edges, make sure you don't have any leftover mud, leftover bits of drywall on there, because that's gonna really hurt your seams. So I like to do a downstroke, an upstroke to get us started. So again, we're kind of doing the same thing we did with the 6-inch blade. We're just smoothing things out to start here. We're not trying to finish it. We're just trying to get us in the ballpark range. Again, keep your knife clean. And then let's do an upward stroke. There we go. And you can see here where our strokes meet. If you come to the side, Wesley, you can see there is this little nice ridge line of, you know, not consistent, not smooth, and that's okay, because that's going to be worked out eventually. So now that you've got a single pass up and down, there is a few pockets of bubbles here. So I like to do another one just to clear any of those out. And you can see how much mud comes off the wall, which is a good thing. You don't want to leave a ton of mud on the wall. You're wanting to take it down so you have a nice thin layer by the end of it. Okay, so we've got our two runs across the middle of it. Now this is when we're going to start feathering. So feathering is an art. It takes a lot of practice to get good at it. But basically, again, like I was saying earlier, what you're trying to do is get a nice transition to where when you're looking at this wall, your eye can't tell that this bumps out just slightly, because every seam, basically what's happening is you're bumping out and you're bumping back in, and we're trying to make that invisible to the eye. So as far as placement of your blade, you got to think about your angle and you got to think about your pressure. So essentially what we're doing, I'll do it over here so you can see without touching the mud yet. We're gonna put depending on which side, so I'm gonna work the right side of this seam, pretending we're here. We're gonna put pressure on the right side of your blade, and we're also gonna put an angle so that basically your left side of the blade here is not touching the seam. So you have a little bit of imagine like a bird's wing that flexes as it's flying, so that you keep a nice even pressure as you're going. But that's kind of the motion you're looking for, is angle, pressure in, and your nice normal stroke. So again, starting with downstrokes, and then you can finish with an upstroke, but this is about what you're looking for. So we're working that edge all the way down, and you can see how it builds up a ridge in the middle right here. Once you do a first pass, that's okay, because we're going to come back and correct that at the end here. So same thing, keeping pressure, keeping that angle, and then if you see any of this going on, just want to hit it again, try to smooth that out. So we're always keeping in mind to take as much of the sanding away from your job as you can. So a lot of the mudding, a lot of the finishing with your blade, you can prevent excessive sanding, which is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of mess. So here we're going to hit if you want to hop on this side, I'm going to hit the left side of the seam here. Do the same thing. Again, keeping that even pressure. You see how my right side of my blade is not touching the seam? And again, I'm going to switch. Right side is not touching and just above, like that. And now you can see both of these edges are nice and tapered. You can't really see the hard line of the mud anymore, which is what you want. You want this to be a nice, smooth, even switch from drywall to mud. So now that we have both sides feathered, you can come back. This is where you want to be really light and gentle. All we're trying to do now is take down these ridges that we've created in the middle. So we're going to do another pass down the center, nice and lightly, nice and gentle. And you can do as many as you need on this. Try not to do too many, because the more you do, you might have to come back and feather again. And here's something else to keep in mind. So you can see I just made a mistake here. If you go too slowly in pressure, see how I make these bubbles or ridges? That means you're going too slow. So sometimes speed is your friend, and even consistent speed as well. So there we go. One more. Sometimes it takes 5 or 6 passes to really get it to look nice. And I always go to the side of my work and check the edges after I've done all passes. Again, here I can see I need a little bit more help on the right side. So let's start at the top. I'm just gonna do another feather pass, nice and gentle, and then another one up. And that is pretty good. Again, there's gonna be always a little bit of sanding to do at the end. So you've got little small ridges you can still see, but those are very easy to sand down, very manageable. So that is pretty much it for your third coat. Again, just take your time, be patient with it. It's gonna take time to learn this. It is a hard skill to get down. There's a lot of practice that goes into it and a lot of just repetition to get good at it, so. All right, guys, so we are at a horizontal seam here and a vertical seam. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and this is where we're gonna kind of walk you through how to make that transition happen with your mudding. So I always like to do my verticals first. There isn't really a right or wrong way to do it. If you're more comfortable doing the horizontals than your verticals, either way can work totally fine. But I'm just gonna walk you through. So I've already got some mud for my third pass on my on my vertical here. So I'm gonna go ahead and load up mud for my horizontal and get this one started. Again, same process as before. We're just getting mud on the wall with our 6-inch blade, and then we're gonna come back with our 10-inch blade as well. So we're just getting it, we're not gonna do the whole seam here, just for example. We're just gonna show you guys the section where they meet, so we can get a good feel of how that goes. Again, not trying to finish, we're just trying to smooth mud out and get it close. So this is kind of a little bit of finesse that goes in here. So obviously we've already got our vertical here is already close to where we want it as far as the finish. And so we're trying not to disturb that as best we can while doing our horizontal. So we're gonna do our first pass. Don't go too much pressure on this because you don't want to start pressing into here. So we're gonna be nice and light, nice and gentle. Get that first. We can get our top feather up here, nice and gentle. The next feather, this is where it gets kind of funky. So we're gonna do the same process, but we're gonna move down into that vertical. See this here? I got a little bit of some mud or drywall in there, so that's something you always want to watch out for if you ever have that. Scrape your blade really well. You can wipe your blade and then check your mud to make sure you don't have a little piece of something in there. So again, we're feathering, and then we're gonna work it in to that other. I actually have to add a little bit of mud to correct that little bit there. Okay. Again, keeping that angle nice and gentle. So basically we're trying to feather them together. Same on this side, we're gonna do the same thing. Nice and gentle, feathering them so that it's all one smooth line. And then to finalize, really gently, you can come through and work the middle together. Same thing, you might have to do another pass across, nice and gentle. But that's what you want to end up with at the end, is one smooth. You don't want to see a big line across here, and you don't want to see a big line across here, because again, that's more sanding you need to do, and we don't want that. So that is it for a horizontal meets a vertical.